Hello, Aurora lovers. This is DaleBoan from DaleBoanImaging, and this is Aurora Hunting 101. This is episode 35, a review of the SpaceWeatherLive app. SpaceWeatherLive is the big dog in terms of apps and websites. It provides a very complete set of data about the aurora and the sun and provides data from other sources other than just NOAA. It is used by a lot of experienced aurora hunters, so let's take a look. This is the SpaceWeatherLive app. I've gone back and forth about whether I should review the app or the website. They have the same information. It's organized in almost the same sequence. So I'm going to briefly look at the app, but for the most part, I'm going to use the website since it's live. So the app has less features than the website. The website has news and forums and pictures and other things like that isn't really available in the app. At least I don't think it is. But the core aurora activity and solar activity is in both, and that's what I'm going to focus on, is specifically the aurora one. There is this refresh that they added recently. I have found that this app sometimes sort of gets stuck, and if you hit refresh, it will repopulate. Normally it updates regularly, but every once in a while it seems to get stuck. So that is a helpful feature. It's easier than killing the app and restarting it. So if we close that and bring up the SpaceWeatherLive, SpaceWeatherLive.com. There actually is a SpaceWeather.com, which also has space information and solar information, but it's more on the news side. It does have the aurora ovals and things like that. So it is SpaceWeatherLive.com. So here is the current KP index. As you can see, it's ad supported, and there's ads sort of scattered all around it now. Does seem to be getting worse. So KP index, as I said, we've got auroral activity here. If you say auroral activity or solar, real-time solar activity, gives you the two options, same as the app. And then they're just, on the app, of course, they're just a stream of this column, and then it's followed by this column. So KP index is where most apps start. It's the current KP index. You can see in the app, when I recorded that app video, it was really high. Right now we have KP 0, 0 plus. So there is not much going on. So that is useful if they have so much data that a lot of it's hidden. There's these drop downs. So you can see KP index forecast for the upcoming days. We don't have anything much coming up until Monday, which is actually going to be Sunday night for us. As I said in other videos, the problems with these day forecasts is they're usually in UTC time. So they're offset a little bit from whatever your local time is, unless you happen to be in Europe close to Greenwich Mean Time. So we have KP, this is more technical and data driven. So the next thing they have is the solar wind information coming from the Discover satellite. Usually most of the other apps hide this. You don't necessarily need to know this. Higher values are always good, but it auto scales, so it's harder to tell. It does change color and it gets stronger. And this is happening, the Discover satellite is quite a ways from Earth. Right now, based on the speed of the solar wind, it's 62 minutes away from Earth. That duration fluctuates as the speed of the wind picks up or declines. Right now it's fairly slow. It's usually not much more than 62 minutes, although sometimes it gets down to 70 if it's really, really slow. Density is how many particles are in the wind. 4.2 is pretty quiet. Strength of the magnetic field. This is the BT, or the total magnetic field. We really only care about the BZ. There's a whole video on BZ, and I've talked about it in some of the other reviews. But when it is negative, when it is red there, that is when energy flows better from the basically particles in the form of energy, or electrical charge, flow into the Earth's magnetosphere, enhancing the aurora, and the aurora starts expanding when that happens. And then when it's positive, that flow gets almost shut off. It's not a complete shut off because we still have aurora even when the BZ is positive. There you can see this updated again. It updates every few minutes. But when the BZ is positive, the aurora tends to shrink or deflate towards the poles. So they've got this sort of different auroral map than some of the other apps. So they're plotting the aurora on a world map. That makes it really hard to see any detail. If you click on this here and in the app, you can scroll through more close-up pictures. Nothing going on. So but the only place you can see the aurora in the southern hemisphere that's not Antarctica is this little bit of Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand. And even then it's not visible right now. So they do have a little more detailed maps. If you click on that one, better is this more data, and that just gives you the original NOAA 30-minute forecasts, and those update every few minutes, and that actually is an aurora forecast. That is the only true aurora forecast that I'm aware of. Certainly from NOAA. I guess there's other groups that might be doing aurora forecasts, but a lot of what KP is not really a direct aurora forecast. It's a measure of the geomagnetic activity in the Earth's magnetic field, which correlates with aurora activity, but BZ and other things affect aurora in different ways. So that hemispheric power is driven, that map is driven by this hemispheric power value. So it's this HPI value up here in the corner. So it's 17.8. That's pretty low. And, as that number goes up, the size of that auroral oval expands. And SpaceWeatherLive is the only place that I know that has this nice graph where you can see the trend of the hemispheric power over time. And if you watch the BZ, I can tell you that the BZ was negative, and then flipped to positive, and it started shrinking back down, if you correlated the times across there. So I find these maps a little more useful just because I'm in Canada, and it's easier to see approximately what part of Canada is being covered. Can I get back out of here? There we go. So it's also got this hemispheric power display. There's so much data on here that as I said, they hide some of these things. So by default, I think hemispheric power is hidden. So you gotta pop it open up to see. I tend not to use apps very much. And when I do, it's mainly SpaceWeatherLive to look at that hemispheric power at night. And it's got the current values for northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere that you're usually within, not very different from each other. Disturbance storm time index. I've been trying to understand that. It is basically how much energy is building up in the ring current, I believe. And it does, it's a measure of how much energy is stored in Earth's in one of the part of the magnetic field that wraps around the Earth. That is probably the wrong word, but there's basically a ring couple Earth diameters out from the Earth, and as energy builds up in there, it essentially weakens the magnetic field, and that energy can flow into the aurora. That is definitely wrong, but that's my current understanding. I actually want to do a video based on the ring current, but I need to understand it better. Part of it is understanding this disturbance storm time index magnetometers. So Canada has a whole bunch of these. This is what is actually measuring KP. This is where, well, not these ones specifically, but that's actually where KP values come from. Is you see how much these are fluctuating, and these turn yellow when there's more fluctuations, and red as it increases. And the more fluctuations in there from normal, the higher the KP value is. And higher, so each of those would be a K value, and then they average it over between a number of locations around the globe to get a KP planetary value. And that's the maximum value in a fixed 3-hour period. So that's where KP comes from. And it's got the moon phase. It doesn't have any weather information. But if you're interested in KP, click on more data and you can get the KP index. So these are the estimated KP indexes for, you can see the trend. This is from the German GFZ Potsdam Research Center. Potsdam. I don't know German. They're actually the ones that KP comes out of that research institute. So in some ways they're more official than the NOAA one. They do use different stations for taking the measurements, so they actually often differ a little bit, but not a large amount. AP index is more the raw numeric value for the K measurements instead of that. That's a direct, well, the A measurement is more an original direct numeric value, as opposed to the K values, which are an index. So if the A value is in between 1 and 10, it's KP1, and 10 and 30, it's KP2 or K2. And then the AP index would be a bunch of A values measured, averaged across the planet as well. But as I said, there is a lot of information in here, and they usually have actually pretty good explanations of what they are, so it's worth clicking on the help or the explanations. We also have, we have the Aurora forecast. So we have the predicted KP values for next day and a half approximately. It's December 9th when I'm recording this. So we got December 9th up to the 11th in the forecast KP values. So we're, in my Sunday night, we're looking at possibly KP3, which is visible where I am. They do have high latitude KP values. So if you're in the high latitudes, it's going to be stronger. Middle latitudes where I am, it's going to be a bit lower. Most apps don't show that. And this is the 27-day forecast, which I tell everyone to ignore, along with the moon phase, which is kind of cool. So, of course, during the new moon, we don't seem to have much activity. Here we've got a couple days where we might have more activity. They're saying, not that, don't put too much value into this, because it's a statistical model. If it's higher here, that's an indication that there's probably more sunspots at that time that will be facing Earth. So probably we'll have more geomagnetic activity based on that, but we just went through a period of a lot of sunspots, and we didn't get a lot of geomagnetic activity, not a lot of aurora. It's statistical. It's the 3-day forecast. This one here is based on actual activity on the sun and then predicting the effect on Earth. This is more of a we can see that there's a bunch of sunspots and active regions on the sun, so we think they will be more activity because of that. And they can even model based on the type of sunspots. Some sunspots are more active than others, but it's probabilities. Over time, it'll probably be that accurate, but for particular rotation of the sun, there's certainly no way of knowing that. And NOAA does not call that a forecast. They call it an outlook. I think it's more for radio interference than geomagnetic activity. If there's sunspots there, they will definitely generate more radio signals, and flares will generate more radio blackouts. So that's how you get to the forecast and the current KP trends. Most of this is real time. There's more data under all of these as well. Info is an explanation. There's a nice help on there. There's more data. If you click on it, and you get bigger graphs and so other sources as well. Time scales and things like that. Not necessary to know those. Even this solar wind information is all encapsulated in this. When NOAA does this calculation, it's taking the solar wind into account. So you don't even need to know about that, right? As the BZ has gone positive, you can see that the HPI has dropped here. And as I said, all of this is available on the app. You can also look at the solar activity. There's it's a lot of pictures. If there's a coronal hole, there's one of these black spots near the equator facing Earth, there's a good chance that there'll be a stream of particles flowing from that that'll enhance the aurora. You can see the sunspots. So there's been a lot of flares recently, a lot from this region. A few days ago it was over here, so all of those missed Earth because they're not headed toward us. And then as those rotate closer to be Earth facing, it's more likely that if they generate CMEs, it's more likely that those will be directed towards Earth. And as I said, different types of sunspots are more likely to generate CMEs and flares. This is a beta. Is that a delta? I can't remember. Beta, gamma. It's alpha, beta. I think that's a gamma. That one is more likely to generate that sort of activity. You can have videos of the CMEs, have videos of the flares, solar proton flux. So if there's a flare, this will spike up. So it's not very active right now. So there's lots of pictures in here. I don't really look at this very much. Every once in a while I will look at latest CMEs. So most CMEs will miss the Earth because they're so small and space is big and the sun is very big. When they are haloed, those are the ones that are probably headed towards Earth. And you see that there's a couple that are marked as type 2. The type is how spread out they are. So if they spread out a whole lot, they're more likely to hit Earth. But then I think probably the downside of that is they're probably spread out and weaker, right? The effect is probably weaker. So there has been some Earth-directed ones recently, but at least have a halo. And you can look at the pictures of them or the video. See, that's the flare going off. So it's kind of fun to poke around. I find it's really hard to correlate these things because it doesn't say which sunspot number in here, which would be very helpful because then you can go see where it's located. It gives you I thought there was a location on here. Not even that. So you correlate by time. Go back and look at when a solar flare happened and correlate that time with the CV. So it's kind of annoying to do. So overall, I really like it just because of this hemispheric power graph. It does generate alerts if you have the app, so that is helpful. The downside of that is it generates alerts for solar activity that has nothing to do with Aurora. You'll get radio blackout alerts and solar flare alerts that, well, it may eventually cause Aurora, but in the short term, they don't really have a significant or any effect on the Aurora. But it does generate alerts for them. It also generates alerts when the KP values increase. I think that's a lot of what I wanted to say about this. The ads are getting a little more numerous and a little more frustrating, but I guess you need to make money somehow, and the alerts are free. The website's got other things on it. It's got news. So they do news stories. This was the coronal hole that everyone was excited about that not a whole lot seemed to happen with. There's daily reports that you can look at. Actually, can you see the NOAA ones in here? I've never actually looked at it. Yeah, so this is the 3-day forecast. This is what it looks like when it comes out. And they've nicely reformatted this. Except this is UTC time, and what your apps do is convert this time into your local time. Yeah, it's good. These are actually nicely reformatted. So you can see the alerts. Yeah, these are very nice. Archive, some historical information. There's community, so you can do your own posts. There's a gallery. You can submit pictures to it. Yeah, or look at pictures. Sell merchandise. Get me out. Some help files, links, and this is run by a volunteer group. So that's always nice. So I don't mind that they advertise, and it looks like you can subscribe for information as well. So SpaceWeatherLive has a lot of information. It has a lot of technical information. It's maybe not organized in the best way. And if you're just starting out, I generally don't recommend it. I would pick Aurora alerts or my Aurora forecast over SpaceWeatherLive. As you get more advanced and you understand a little more of the technical material and know which parts of SpaceWeatherLive to ignore and which to pay attention to, I think it is much more useful. And my favorite thing about that is that hemispheric power trend, because that is what I pay attention to at night. I don't pay attention to KP. I sometimes say KP is for suckers at night. You really want to pay attention to the HP values because that is a true Aurora forecast. and that'll give you a much better idea of what the activity is at night. So for someone starting out, novice Aurora hunters, I'd give it like a 4 or 5 out of 10. For experienced Aurora hunters, 8, 9 out of 10. It's definitely got one of the most complete sets of data. You do have to dig around and know where things are, but there's certainly options. You know, if NOAA goes down, there's the German data for KP values, things like that. Not that NOAA ever goes down for very long. Every once in a while, things glitch, but in general, these services are very reliable. So if you're looking for a little more advanced information and you're more technical oriented, SpaceWeatherLive might be a good option for you. With that, please check out episode 36, which is going to be a review of the Aurora forecast website. It's going to be pretty short because that's not a very complicated website, but a lot of people end up there, and I wanted to talk about it because I think some of it's a bit misleading. So with that, I'm wishing you clear skies and happy hunting.